What's the #1 thing causing algae in my tank? Let's go take a look. Here's a top view of my 75-gallon semi-aggressive community tank. And right here, we are looking at the Amazon forest, whereas there's just a ton of Amazon leaves picking up or poking out of the top here. And what do you see? We have algae growing on the leaves, right? And if we look at the leaves, they're dying. I can see all kinds of holes in them. It's really thin, it's starting to yellow. And what we notice is that every single leaf that has algae on it is what? Is dying. And if we look at a healthy leaf, there's no algae on it. Here's another healthy leaf, no algae, no algae, no algae. And what's the difference? Well, these leaves are healthy and these ones are dying. So what does that mean? Well, it means we need to quit being lazy and do some maintenance. You see, what a lot of people forget is that algae is actually a plant, which means it grows in the same way, in the same manner all your other aquatic plants grow, right? Your plants need light and nutrients in order to grow. And those nutrients are normally in the form of ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. And dying plants produce ammonia. The bacteria within your aquarium breaks down that ammonia, turn it into nitrite and then nitrate, and your plants and algae feed off of that. And what's interesting is that where there's the greatest concentration of nitrite, nitrate, ammonia is right where something is dying, whether that's rotting fish food or dead fish or some kind of decaying plant matter, or in this case, dying leaves. And what we see on those dying leaves is algae just absolutely going to town. There's a ton of blackbeard algae on those leaves, and I need to cut them out and get rid of them to prevent further algae breakouts. Now, if algae breakouts wasn't a good enough reason to trim your plants that are dying, another good reason is that your plant is using resources to keep each of its stems and each of its leaves alive, including the ones that are only half alive and half dying. And so it's gonna die anyways. Once a leaf starts dying, the plant will continue to send resources to it to preserve it as long as it can, but it will die. Not many leaves, not many stems can come back alive after the fact. And how a plant normally handles this is once it does die, well, a new leaf is able to form because it has that extra nutrients that it can move into new growth. And you can speed along this process and get new leaves that are healthy, that are adapted to your water if you just trim them. So when you're looking at your aquarium, yes, you want to do water testing. Yes, you want to check to make sure your fish are okay and there's no spots on them and there's no fin rot and they're not acting funny. But you also want to look at your plants, right? Look at them to see if there's any browning, any yellowing, any spots. Are they getting really thin? Are they getting translucent? Are there just algae growing on them? And you may want to consider if you need to start trimming those or pruning some of those plants to make sure you have a healthy aquarium and very healthy plants. Not only am I taking out the Amazon swords, but I'm also taking out some floating plants. I call this area of my fish tank the death trap. And it's because somehow it sucks all the duckweed and all the water lettuce over here, and it keeps water going on top of it. And over time, in a matter of days to a week, they start to die, they start to rot, and it causes algae breakouts. So how I normally deal with the death spot, instead of buying something, which you could, and that may actually be more appropriate in this scenario, but what I like to do, whenever I see that filter start pulling in some of the duckweed and water lettuce and start pushing it under, I know that it's time to top off the tank, right? And so what happens is as the water lowers, the water that's coming out of the filter is at a level to where it pulls in the duckweed and then pushes it under. But once you fill the water back up, instead of pushing it under, it actually pushes it out and away from the filter. So all I gotta do is top this thing off and that death spot will be gone, at least for a few days. And if we take a look at the death trap now, instead of pulling it in and pushing it down, it's now pushing that duckweed and water lettuce away to the front of the tank. So here's a front view of the death spot here. It's pushing all the floating plants up to the front instead of down under the water, which is perfect. Guys, take a look at all of the trimmings we got. You see this little guy here, this one was dying. It's starting to get really translucent, has a lot of holes in it, and you can see it's starting to develop some black bear algae or some other kind of green algae on it. And so we want to get rid of this. And if we look at them, all the plants are kind of going that way. They weren't too bad, but once they're on the way out, they're on their way out. And we just got a ton of stems, right? An absolute ton of them. Some of them are pretty long. Some of them are like 18 inches long. This one just absolutely covered in algae here. And I'm glad we're getting this out because it's starting to die. You can see the holes in it. And if you look at it, right, the green part, there's no algae. And if you look at the dying part, tons of algae. So prune your plants. Once you see they're on their way out, go ahead and get rid of them. You have a healthier fish tank and a healthier plant. And then this is all the floating plants that I got rid of. These ones were kind of dying because they were getting killed by that water in that death spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and chuck these as well. And guys, take a look at the tank now. It's looking really good. It opened up the canopy a little bit so a little bit more sunlight, or I guess artificial light, can come down into the tank. And trimming those dead plants is gonna help get rid of algae. And at the same time, you can see I have baby Amazon swords growing right there. It's gonna help send more nutrients to those so they grow bigger, stronger, and healthier. And not only do I have this runner with like 7 or 8 Amazon swords on there, but another Amazon sword plant sent another runner. This one's really long. It already reached the top of the tank and I had to bend it over. If I take it out of the tank, it extends a good 6 to 8 inches at the top. But in a few more days, few more weeks, it'll start growing little baby Amazon swords just like this one. And we're gonna have a ton of plants, guys. Well, guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. If you like the content you see, go ahead and subscribe for more content just like this. And if you want behind the scenes footage and a deeper dive into what we do here in the fish room and the plants that I grow and the fish that I have, go ahead and hit the join button to see the membership levels, to see some of the perks you can get in joining that. And until next time, guys, I'll see you.